breath. Good. Pause. And power. Good. Last one. Good. Now fast feet. There we go. That's good. Good. Fast as you can. So what we're going to do is we're going to taper in. We're going to do one last heavy log session, and then you have around 12 days until the competition of no log pressing or no more heavy log pressing, and we'll taper everything in to the show. So we'll taper all the weights down, and then you go into a rest period, and then you'll peak for the 6th of April.
Awesome. Perfect. Good plan.
So specifically with strongman, you need to be careful in terms of the time you're doing, or the length of time you're doing strongman events. So obviously there's going to be a time limit where you need to peak. Or you can't be doing strongman events back to back for say 6 months. You need to peak it either between 12 and 8 weeks before the competition, where you start to add and build to a peak. All right, now you're starting to feel small niggles. This is a sign that we are peaking, and your body's telling you, okay, back off a little bit. So that's when we start to deload and make sure you're 110% for when we go in and compete. Specific with strongman, that's key, is peaking at the right point and listening to your body.
Absolutely. And I've been doing strongman movements now, safe to say, since early January, and now we're coming on to March, so it's been about 12 weeks.
Yeah.
So I'm right about, I say I'm definitely peaked. And then once I'm fully recovered, I'll be that 10% strong that I've been in training.
For sure. And when you're training, again, specifically in strongman, you're working around 80-90% of your max capacity, because you're always on the back foot with training. So we need that 10 days, 7 days prior of rest, recovery, deload. So we're making sure we're on top.
Absolutely. All right.
Pause and then power now, yeah? So focus on your breathing, holding that breath in, getting the tension in your core, bracing. Pause and then explosive up. Perfect. Good. There we go, that's it. When you're at the bottom of the squat, I want you to create as much tension as you can in your core to help with stability. That's going to carry over into that log, yeah?
100%.
Build that tension, that deep breath in, squat down, pause, tension's in the core, then we're up, power up. Yeah?
Oh yeah. Been working hard on contracting my abs, and the last couple log sessions I've been feeling better. Come on. Yes. Facing the right way.
Good. And power, that's it. A little bit longer on the pause. Pause. Power. Yeah.
Okay. Let's go to work. Let's get to work, Mark. Let's get to work. Come on. Yes! Nice.
Keep taking tension in the core. Let's go all the way down. Let's pause. Be assertive at the bottom. Deep breath in. Give me 5. Good. Pause and then power up through the ceiling. That's it. Perfect. And again, lad. Good. Pausing and then power. Good. That's it. Explosive. Same again. Good. Tension's in the core and up. Power. 3. 2 more. Let's go. Build the tension. Deep breath in. Good. Pause and power. Good. Last one. Let's go. Good. Build the tension and power through the ceiling. Good. Perfect. Good. Good. Good work. It's good.
Tight. Yes. Oh yeah. Come on. Pause. Up. Nice. Stop.
I didn't realise it was this Faces of Larry. Last set on this, let's go. Suck it up. Focus on that breathing. Get the tension in the core. Good. Build the tension and then power. Through the ceiling, Larry, let's go. Explosive. And up, power. There we go. And power. Good. 2 more. Deep breath. Good. Pause. And power. Good. Last one. Deep breath. Good. And power. 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 Good. Perfect.
Come on, let's see it. Come on. Come on. Sit. Yes. All right, keep that chest up. Come on. Keep it up. Yes. Nice.
Slow and control, think you're coiling a spring, coil, 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 just before you touch the floor, spring up, yeah, keep the chest up. Do then spring, that's it. Chest up, head up, that's it, get the back under tension as well. Good, and power up, perfect, that's it. Slow down, power up. There we go, perfect, perfect. Slow down, and then power up, good. Good. Another thing with strongman is, a lot of the movements are technique based, so we can't be erratic in how we do the movements. So try and think the aspect of a coiled spring. So when you're coiling a spring, it's slow and controlled, and then we spring. Right? We never coil a spring down and up. Right? So we want to create that explosive element where controlled, absorb, 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 and then we power. Yeah.
Okay.
Right. In the long run, that's going to help us be more explosive. Yeah.
Right. Okay, more control.
Think the triangle. Strength plus speed equals power. what we're going to do is replicate the truck pull. Or obviously we're going to start going into deload, so we're going to do lighter work with sled pulls. Obviously replicating the same movements, the mechanics, but we're going to work that cardiovascular system and work the legs. Obviously we want to avoid using the biceps because you're a little bit fatigued at the minute with all the pressing we're doing, so just a part of your deload, but keeping the conditioning in there. We'll do some sled pulls, harness on, and we'll get running down the track.
All right, that works. Am I running anybody over, or?
Hopefully not.
All right.
We'll take a few names, we'll get them out of there. All right?
Okay.
Right, so practice leaning your body weight forward, keep it nice and low, focusing on narrow, small steps, but fast feet. Yeah? Feet together, lean forward, get moving, fast feet. Good, perfect, yeah, good swivel. Right, swivel round, let's go. Lower. Good. That's it. Right. Lean. Good, fast feet. Good, low as you can. Good. And straight round, let's go. Straight round. Let's go. Straight in. Lean. Fast feet, lower line, lower. Good.
Yes. Okay. Come on.
Right, let's do it.
All right, last
Get
one.
nice and low. I'm going to get tension on here.
Tension, you think?
Yeah, I'm going to make you build the tension by leaning.
And then
as much
squat
as you
into
can,
it.
and then we'll go, yeah?
Okay.
Lean forward. 3, 2, 1, let's go. Release, that's it, good. Then fast feet, there we go, that's it. Good, fast as you can. Good, Larry, good. And we're swiveling, let's go. Same again, yeah? We'll build that tension. Hold, and we'll pull them, let's go. Low as you can, let's go. Good, lower. Good, Larry, good.
Okay, guys. Safety bar squats, split squats, and finished off with some sled pulls. Now, today, Mark and I thought it was best to avoid using my biceps. So we just use a safety bar squat to avoid any tension in the biceps. Split squats, my arms are locked out. And the sled pull, I skipped truck pull this week because, pulling on the rope will obviously just cause more inflammation in my biceps. So I did the sled pull without any tension on my upper body, just the lower. And Mark, maybe you want to help explain a little further.
Naturally, we're just going to deload now all the sort of strongman movements specifically into the log. So we want to make sure he's bang on ready for obviously this last heavy log session, and then we just taper down the weights into a rest period where we'll peak for the World Log Lift Championships.
Absolutely. Earlier in the video we were saying about 8 to 12 weeks of training, and then your body is gonna crash in a sense. You're gonna start feeling the aches and pains catch up to you. Your motivation to train is gonna start to decline. Every morning you wake up, you're not gonna be like, oh, I can't wait to get to the gym. This is the week where you're actually like, I can use another rest week. And that's how I'm feeling right now. There's some aches and pains in my lat, my bicep, my lower back, and mostly like adrenal fatigue from constantly pushing myself with a heavy log, heavy deadlifts, heavy safety bar squats.
And that's a sign that we are actually peaking, because during training we're working at that capacity of 80 to 90%, nearly every second day or every third day, and when we start to feel that nervous system fatigue, that's when we feel that we are peaking, and then that's just a sign. Deload into a rest period and we go for it.
Absolutely. So guys, you can take that advice and run with it. When you feel like you hit a plateau or you feel those aches and pains catching up to you, that's definitely your body telling you to ease back off the training, enter a deload week or two, and then get back to training slowly. And if you're peaking for a competition, then that means you're already peaked and it's time for a deload, and then the following week will be game day. So guys, please like, subscribe, drop a comment, turn on post notifications, and please check out purelifestyle.com for lifting gear, supplements, and more. See you guys soon.
Cheers.
Oh yeah. All right guys, what's going on? It's Larry Wheels here with Com.
My man.
Yes sir. Here we are at the 76th floor at the Burj Khalifa, tallest building in the world. And just want to tell us a little bit about like what's in the background and
yeah, so pretty much you can see all of Dubai here. Downtown Dubai, the ruler's palace, Dubai Mall. This whole development here was a $20 billion development. They spent about 1.8 on the building, which is the world's tallest building, and then they spent around 18 billion on the mall, which is the world's biggest mall as well. In Dubai, everything is world's biggest, world's baddest, things like that. But yeah, the view up here is amazing, and you can pretty much see the whole city in a really clear day. And it's just unfortunately one of those cloudy days and rainy days. Like,
despite that, I'm still getting an amazing view. Still grateful to be up here. Thank you so much for bringing me in the private tour.
My pleasure.
I've never even been, so I'm born and raised in New York City. I still haven't been a tourist in my own city. I haven't even been to the Empire State Building yet.
No way. I have. It's about 100 stories, so.
It's still pretty tall.
Yeah.
So, will we be going any higher today?
This is roughly halfway. Now we're about to go down and around to the world's fastest elevator, of course, and we're going up to 123rd floor. So We'll see you guys on the 123rd floor.
Let's get lifted.
This one doesn't. Careful your hands.
No, it's the other one.
I love you. Are you afraid of this? No. Schizophrenic. It is.
They're not near you.
Your presence a little bit too much on me, right? It's like fantastic.
I'm sorry, but he's straight.
I'm not wearing the tie today. I don't know. That's a bad.
Moved to the US and Canada, pretty much raised and educated there. I started my first business at 7. I used to have a lemonade stand on the street corner, and I didn't know anything about business back then, franchising, manufacturing, any of these type of things. But I got a bunch of kids with me involved in the neighborhood, and we set up a bunch of stands, made a bunch of money, and that was my first experience as an entrepreneur. And I said, wow, this is the coolest shit in the world, till this day, I don't think I've ever had anyone who's overpaid me for a product, back then it was 50 cents a glass, and someone gave me $5 one time, and I said, this is crazy, this is amazing. So I made $900. The deal was that each kid would write down one thing they wanted, and then we would all work together to help them get it, and then whatever profit was left over after the summer would be mine. And in that summer I made $900, and I said, wow, this is the coolest shit in the world. And we grew up pretty much, in not, I don't want to say extreme poverty, but poverty, 4 older brothers, 1 older sister. Father worked 3 jobs, just to provide for the family, things like that. And so I did a bunch of other odd childhood stuff that you do. In Canada, it snows every other day, so we used to shovel snow all the time, newspaper routes, all these different things like that. When I was 13, my brother bought a pizza store and that became like the family business, you know. So I used to work in the pizza store from 13 to 18. I used to go to school, get off at 3:30 p.m., go to the pizza store, work till like 2 a.m., go back, sleep, go to school, like no extracurricular, sports, life, girls, anything, you know. It was just like pizza boy, you know. But the cool thing was I had all this uninterrupted time, and so I used to read a lot, and I'd read books on every entrepreneur out there. I'd read books on business, I'd read books on marketing, sales, like autobiographies, everything I could get my hands on, essentially. And I read over 2,500 books in that 5 years time. Yeah, a huge amount. So it's almost like I had a self-education. Afterwards, 18, I started my own thing. When I was 16, I got my driver's license. And I used to make tip money. When I deliver pizza, you get like $1, $2, sometimes $5 tip, you know, and I saved up my tip money and I started my first business, which was a software company. Failed miserably in it. And long story short, started 7 companies back to back. Failed every single one of them. I had one of the roughest starts as an entrepreneur that you can imagine. Like literally learned everything, like banged my head against the wall the hard way, you know, oh shit, you're not supposed to do this again, you know, and stuff like that. And eventually I managed to start a software for car dealerships, used car dealerships. So back then the big guys like Ford, GM, Toyota, they had brilliant systems, brilliant management, you know, they're doing hundreds of billions of dollars. The local small used car dealership guy, you know, we called him the Joe Blow, you know, like type of guy, didn't have anything, you know, and they were doing stuff manually by hand. They were, you know, keeping the inventory by hand, all this other stuff. So we created a software that allowed them to pretty much do everything that we'd need on the used car lot. And that took off. I got it to 30, 40 grand a month. Prior to that though, that was my 9th company. My 8th company, I had nothing going for me. I was always good at making money and putting it into the next thing, just enough to like start again type of thing. And 8th company, I borrowed money from everybody I knew. So like literally raised from friends, family, pretty much everybody. And I proceeded to go bankrupt after 6 months of trying to launch this software. And it was the worst time of my life. 2.5 months of depression after that, like sitting on the toilet, crying my eyes out, you know, hiding from the world, you know, like not knowing how to deal with the fact that I owe every single person on the planet money. And I dropped out of high school. So while I was building these companies, I was still in high school. And I remember I went to my business teacher one day. I had 4 failed companies, and my parents used to drop me at school. I used to take the bus to my office, which is like 2 blocks down. Used to work and then come back to school before time was up, where they'd pick me up. And so I remember asking my business teacher, because, you know, theory in textbook is one thing, you know, and in the textbooks they teach you like, yeah, this is how you do marketing, you know, and this is how you do this and that. And then when the real world, it's like a world apart from what they teach you in the textbooks and stuff. And so I was just getting to the point where I was really fed up with school and trying to chase my dream, and I didn't think I could do both. You know, I had to be obsessive enough to commit to one. So I remember I asked my teacher, he was saying something about marketing, and I was like, this is total bullshit, you know, like, and I asked him, sir, have you ever started or failed in a company? And he said, no. And I said, well, what qualifies you to teach a generation of kids business, you know? And he said, the textbook. And I said, this is total bullshit. All right, I'm done. And I literally dropped out the next day, and I tried to pursue my dream full time of becoming a businessman, of becoming an entrepreneur. Unfortunately, it didn't work out very well in the beginning, you know. Like, so my 8th company owed everybody money. 9th company, when I finally got, you know, the business up to 30, 40 grand, I started saving every penny, paid everybody back. Felt amazing. Like that was the biggest accomplishment of my life at that time. But software is one of those businesses where if you don't have a version 2, version 3, you know, and you're continually improving what you're doing, you get, you know, it's a very competitive space, and you get blown out of the water right away with someone with deeper pockets, better, you know, better talent and employees and stuff like that. And it's exactly what happened. I started to lose some clients, and so long story short, I sold the business to my first client for a very low amount of money, you know, much lower than what it was worth. But I just wanted to get out, you know. Like I had one of those days where you wake up and you're like, is this what you want to do for the rest of your life? And the answer was an immediate no. So I was like, man, okay, I got to figure out what I'm gonna do. And I moved to the UK. I moved to London. My brother was living there. So I said, you know what, I can wear his clothes, eat his food, sleep on his couch, like figure out what the hell I'm gonna do with my life. And I was a big believer that you can make it in your own backyard. Like I'd read too many stories of like Henry Ford made it in Dearborn, Michigan, Warren Buffett, Omaha, Nebraska. Like these are not places you go to build a big illustrious business career. Like these are the backwoods, backyards that like entrepreneurs just don't go. So I was a big fan of that. I can make it in my own backyard. I can do this, and unfortunately it just, it didn't work out that way. So I moved to London. Long story short, I started a company there. It was a software as well for processing payments in the betting space and things like that. That took off. Ran out of money 3 times trying to launch it. Borrowed money. Finally found an investor. That took off. Did really, really well. I worked 21 hours, 22 hours a day, literally just getting it off the ground and stuff like that. And then it was the first time in my life that I had money. And I was 21, and imagine a 21-year-old kid, and you're 21, so like you can kind of learn from this, but imagine a 21-year-old kid and now you have $1 million in the bank and you have no knowledge and education on how to manage money, invest money, the difference between an asset, a liability, and so I did the natural, logical thing I knew how to do, which was spend, and I burnt through $1 million in 8 months on the dumbest shit that you can ever imagine. Thinking back on it is it's so embarrassing, literally so embarrassing. 4 motorcycles that my friends would drive with me who didn't know how to drive and would fucking crash into everything, rental cars, apartments, lending people money, thinking, oh, I'm a big shot now, I'm gonna invest into something, and then literally ass kicked all over the place, lost money everywhere, spent shit ton on liabilities that never made me money back. It came to the point where I was like, holy shit, I'm broke up here, so it doesn't matter if my company tomorrow makes $100 million, up here I'm broke, and so if I don't do something about this, I'm gonna do the same thing again that I did with the previous money, and I think that's one of the things that they don't teach you in school, they don't teach you how to manage a bank account and a checkbook and, manage your credit cards, just throw the debt at you and get you as deep into debt as possible. And then before you realize, you're like, fuck, interest, wow. Yeah, so 21, made a lot of mistakes and did the dumbest shit you can ever think of with money. And then I went on this journey and said, I'm gonna learn everything I know about, everything I can learn about the difference between an asset and liability, as much financial stuff as I can. And so one part of it is financial literacy, financial IQ. The other part was financial discipline, which is understanding not to waste money on things that don't necessarily make you money or do anything for you in some sense. And so the literacy part was easy. You just read and you learn. The discipline part was tough. I remember going out with friends and getting a Caesar salad and the chicken is $2 extra, and I'd be like, shit, I can't put chicken on this right now, real discipline, because you have a budget essentially. And it's tough to do coming off of an unlimited budget for a 21-year-old kid, so it was even more tough and psychologically painful to some degree, but I stayed as disciplined as I could. I had maybe 2 slip-ups where I went on a bender and really really didn't follow the rules. But yeah, for a young kid, it's still pretty good, at least in my opinion. But looking back on it, I think it's the best thing that ever happened to me, because it gave me $1 million degree that you can't get anywhere else, in understanding, what never to buy again, what never to waste my money on again, and things like that. And even though it was painful and I learned that the hard way, I learned it at such a young age that
at the very beginning.
Yeah, that it helped me save a shit ton of money throughout the rest of my life and career and stuff like that. So company that I had was doing good. I'm a natural entrepreneur. It's the only thing I've ever done. I can't sing, dance, act. I don't have good looks, like a model. I don't even think I can lift 10% of the weights Larry lifts, so I didn't have much talent going for me in a lot of other areas in life. I didn't have a wicked jump shot or a great tackle, but I was just good at business. I was just gifted at business. I can, feel at home in business discussions. I can talk about this stuff till I'm blue in the face. Like, it was just one of those things that I knew it was my space, you know, and so I started more companies, and as much as we failed, slowly things started to get good as well. So like, let's say I started 5 companies, one of them would start to make money, 4 of them would fail, you know, and I'd say, wow, like, you know, I'm starting to get the hang of this, you know. And there's a great quote by this author called Robert Kiyosaki. He wrote this book called Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and he has this really great quote. He says, I have a foolproof business plan because 9 out of 10 businesses fail. So start 10 businesses, you know, and so that one of them will succeed and you're foolproof, you're gonna make it, you know. And so my philosophy was, I read that book when I was like 15, 16, and my philosophy was like, just keep trying, you know, just keep doing shit, and eventually you're gonna figure something out. Eventually it did start to figure out. Then I moved here in Dubai 2010, and I came here because there's no tax here. So like, no corporate tax, no personal income tax, which you make, you keep. This last year, they introduced a VAT tax, a VAT tax, which is 5% on goods and services and stuff like that. But besides that, I mean, you still make all the money you make, you get to keep and stuff like that. So,
But before we move on,
Yeah.
you're born and raised in Canada, right?
yeah, raised in Canada.
Sorry, raised in
Yeah,
Canada.
yeah.
So what, like, could you compare the two, right? A lot of my following comes from America and Canada, I'm sure, and we pay a lot of taxes. So what would be, like, what's the difference? Like here, you said 5% VAT tax?
Yeah.
So what is it like in Canada if you earn 7 figures?
Yeah, Canada, I think it's 20-something%. I don't, I've been out of there for so long that I don't remember too much, but like, I think it's 20-something%. And again, like, there's personal income. So like, whatever you pay yourself from your company, you pay tax on that. Whatever your company makes, you pay tax on that. So you have your personal income tax, you have your corporate income tax. Canada, one of the cool things is, if there's any Canadian citizens watching, you can keep your passport, you can keep your Canadian citizenship, but you can give up your residency rights. Residency rights, you just don't get the healthcare, you know, and stuff like that. And obviously Canada healthcare is free, so it's amazing. Like, but you can give up your residency rights and you can move to a place like the Caribbean or even Dubai or any of these tax havens. You have to be out of the country 180 days of the year, so half of the year, and then you can be in the country 180 days a year. So you can pretty much still, like, I mean, you're traveling half the year anyway, you know what I mean? So like, but the bad news is, for US citizens, there's not much you can do. US, they tax your ass wherever you go, you know, like, there is programs and different things that you can set up, and you can declare a less income, and there's workarounds and different things like that you can do to minimize your expenses, and to minimize what you pay in tax, and to claim a lot more things. So like, you can claim your travel, you can claim a lot of things. You can set up a company here, and the company, I don't know if we should like really go deep into this, but if you're cool with it, I will. It might give someone the
It's interesting, yeah.
yeah, by all means then. So I have a friend who is a US citizen, lives in the US, and so he has a company here which I helped set up for him, and he pays no tax. All the company makes its money here. He sends a lot of the business that he does elsewhere in the world, the receipts and the invoices here. So the money comes into the bank account here, and he has a credit card. So the issue with tax is when you move money around. I'm moving money into your bank account, I'm moving money into another account, then there's digital footprints. But if it's moved into one account here, as an example, and it's tax haven here, and you have a credit card with a high limit, enough that you can buy a fucking car, you can buy a house, you know, to some degree. You can spend on that credit card anywhere in the world, the money comes out of the bank account here. So it's almost like disposable cash. It's just not cash to some degree, you know, and this way you completely avoid tax. Like, he's avoiding tax for the last 4 years, you know, doing it this way, and he just spends on the credit card. He comes here once every 6 months. The cool rules about being here is that you enter the country once every 6 months, and literally you can enter, get the stamp on your passport at the airport, and fly back out. You don't even have to come stay in, do anything. So 2 times a year you come here, and your residency is considered, you know, valid and active and things like that. So pretty convenient, you know, and this is why Dubai has become known as a place where a lot of people come for tax havens. And a lot of money flows through here from around the world of people who generally have maybe another business somewhere else and things like that. And it's very favorable for a lot of places except for the US. And this is why you have to use these workarounds and you have to do different things like that. Like, I have another friend, he's from the UK. UK tax is high as well. He invoices all the stuff here. So he has a company here in a relative's name, and he invoices, he gets paid there. But he says the company here is doing all the work, and so I have to pay them. And so he claims less income there, you know, and the money comes here essentially. So there's different workarounds that you can do to try to avoid some of this stuff. I remember I met Eduardo Saverin. He's a friend of mine. I met him years back at the Forbes Middle East conference, and he's one of the co-founders of Facebook. And Eduardo is worth maybe 7 billion, 8 billion. He renounced his U.S. citizenship and he moved to Singapore, and literally, like, they nailed him hard on tax when he did that. Obviously, they're like, if you want to fuck off, then you gotta pay the man. You know, like, yeah, you paid a shitload of money, but now he doesn't have to keep paying it. You know, and so it was a one-time marriage breakup, you know, type of thing, divorce. Yeah. So like it's costly, but I think there's a lot of workarounds within a reasonable, you know, area of the law where you're technically not breaking the law, and you know, you can set up separate companies and entities in different places. I know so many people in the U.S. who are friends of mine who have entities in the Caymans, they have entities in the Caribbean and places like that, and it's tax havens and tax shelters. You know, they do it just to save as much money as possible. I think it's once you get into that stage of life where you're making enough money, it becomes almost like how do I get to keep as much of my money that I'm making, you know, and the government is like a business partner that is like the mafia. You know? They never give you shit, and they just ask you, give me my payment, you know, when it's time, and if you don't, they tack on interest, and they it's like loan sharking without any loans, you know, yeah, it's crazy. Yeah, so came out here 9 years ago. And when I got here, the world was going through a financial crisis, you know, and so there was like, here it was hit really hard as well. And here the rules are very different. So if you bounce a check, stuff like that, you don't just, you know, get a bad credit score, you go to jail. And then you have to pay, you have to work at a payment structure and things like that. So it's such a small place, and the banks are lending so much that, you know, if you just came here and you took a loan and you took off and never came back, what do they do? You know, and so they can't really do anything because a lot of people did that. So they started to put stricter punishments in place for people who weren't following the financial rules and stuff like that. So it just became one of those places at that time that a lot of people were running from Dubai because they didn't want to go to jail, and they had, you know, cars out on loan, they had, you know, mortgages out on houses, and the economy was doing bad, the world financial system was in shits. Yeah, and so I came at literally that time, so things were cheap, you know, and coming in, you know, I didn't have any money here, businesses here. I was literally coming in with my money. And so you start to look, and this is one of the things that investors and wealthy people do, is that you look at things for bargains. You know, it's like going to the grocery store and, you know, whatever is on a bargain, I'm gonna stock up on. And you look at it in that way. So for me, coming here and realizing, wow, there's still a lot of potential here in different businesses and different things like that. But at the same time, you know, everybody's running from here, and like, you know, there is some element of risk and different things like that. So when I came here, I said, I'm gonna get into the businesses that I think the government and the economy are in, and if they lose, I lose. You know, if they're gambling on some big utopian dream and they manage to pull some of it off, then, you know, I'll benefit riding their coattails, essentially. And so construction is here, it's huge here. I'm sure you've gone around, you see cranes and construction everywhere. So we got into the construction space. That's one of our prime businesses now. We got into tourism, so like luxury car rentals and different things like that. That is another big thing. Winter months, it's great because the weather is good. Summer, it's the desert, so the weather's like Vegas, super hot, you know, and not a lot of tourism, you know, and things like that. So it dies down. We got into technology. Technology's always been my bread and butter since I was young. Yeah, and then just got into like different businesses that I thought I can scale and I can do well in, and things like that. So we're pretty much about a dozen companies. Half of them make money, half of them are either losing money, or breaking even, or there's hopes that they'll start to make money, hopefully eventually soon. And literally just a lifetime of failure, just learning the hard way. And like I gave you the super condensed version of the story, because the story is like even more nightmarish and painful and long, and like failures and setbacks and defeats and like all these different things. And it's kind of like what you achieve in your athletic pursuits, and knowing that you're young and you have this much potential, and you just want to see how far you can go and where you can push yourself. And even though you may suffer an injury or a setback, you're not necessarily going to give up. And in the business world, it's a different type of pain. It's a psychological pain. It's even downright spiritual pain. When you have a failed company, or you make a big mistake financially or things like that. And if I think back on it, like every single mistake that you think that a person can make, I've made it. Trusting the wrong people, wrong partnerships, like you name it, failed companies. A couple of companies, even last year, I had 2 companies where we raised investment and the companies didn't work, and it failed. And you have people, oh man, like I lost money in that company, and even though there's multiple reasons of why something would fail, as someone who is launching the project, or basically taking, the leaders have to take responsibility to some degree, and so I always look at these things as my losses, like I'm the one who caused the loss or something, or it's my responsibility, regardless of if the other guy was the guy who did it, like, or anything like that. And so I think you learn a lot about yourself, and you learn a lot about what your potential is and where your mindset can go when you are faced with never-ending challenges. And I think that's one of the coolest things about being an entrepreneur, is that we're putting out fires like every day. We're solving problems every day, and it just so happens every once in a while we solve a big enough problem in a good way that we make enough money out of it, and financially you're able to take care of your family and yourself for life and things like that. But it's a never-ending struggle. Like you get so close to where you're trying to go, and then the rug gets pulled out from underneath you, and then you got to start again. Like I remember last week I was talking to Thor, and he said, before he won the World's Strongest Man, and he said the year before he was off like 2 points, and that pissed him off enough to like incite that fire. Like, I'm going to do everything right, like to the detail. I'm going to be so disciplined. I'm going to make sure that I don't even like that one little thought of, taking it easy, fuck that, it's all out. I'm going to do everything right. And he did. He came back and he won, and so I think that's the cool thing, but it's just a painful process. Most people don't look at it in that type of endurance or stamina. Like, if I don't make it this time, I'm going to come back again. Most people, they get punched in the face once, and they're like, this is not for me. Like I think I'm in the wrong profession or career, and I know so many bodybuilders and competitive athletes who compete, and they don't, necessarily place where they wanted to place. And they're like, man, like, this sport is unfair. It's politics, it's this and that, and stuff like that. And man, if you look at even the Ronnie Colemans of the world, and if you look at their Olympias where they started to place and then where he ended up, like, you gotta place somewhere. Like you gotta have some foundation of getting in the game, getting your foot in the door, and then growing from there. Like, so I think you have to be playing the long game, and you're 24, you're doing incredible, and I think if you, even from a mindset perspective, if you look at playing the long game, you're going to achieve incredible things in your career. And if you look at the short game, or if you just look at the money and things like that, you'll make a lot of mistakes, and this is something I'm speaking from experience as well, knowing so many different athletes as well. And I used to have a mentoring company. We used to mentor. We used to mentor entrepreneurs, have an amazing track record, like helped hundreds of people make millions and millions of dollars in their businesses, and there's you can see all the things, like where the person's potential is and where they're going to make mistakes and different things like that. Like, and so we'll talk again as well later. I have an exercise that I run people through. It takes about 45 minutes to 50 minutes, and literally it'll give you such extreme clarity on how to build your dream that you know, by the time you're done doing it, you'll say, okay, cool. Like now I know what my foundation is. You know, I know what are the things that I need to do, and what are the things that I can accomplish, and how to even start the first steps towards these things and execute them.
All right, so like we said, we're gonna go higher, and here we are at the 123rd floor. Behind us, we have an even greater view, and this is actually the residents only.
Yeah, residents only lounge.
Right.
So the people who have apartments in the building can pretty much come up here and hang out and bring their guests, like Larry. You know, and so we're 123 floors up, and literally what we saw earlier from the view was like a little less than halfway. You know, so now, yeah, everything's even smaller.
And you said the very tippy top, there's like a little shaft you go through that can
Yeah.
even fit me.
Yeah, so Larry can't fit in that shaft. Basically, you go through this little crawl space, and you go up this ladder, and it opens up on the top with this little metal top lid thing, and you stand out on the spire of the Burj Khalifa, which is literally the tallest man-made, I think, point in the world. Very scary. There's only two people I've ever seen go up there. One is the Crown Prince of Dubai, and the second, and he's actually gone through the crawl space to get up there. And the second is Tom Cruise, when he filmed Mission Impossible, and he was lowered from a helicopter, and he just literally casually sat on top of the spire and then took this awesome photo, like epic photo. Yeah, when he was filming, he was doing all these stunts and stuff in here as well. You get a lot of movie stars that come here. Jackie Chan was here last week as well, filming something upstairs.
Okay.
Yeah, he was doing some cool stuff, and he's into his own stunts and things like that too, just like Tom Cruise. Like, we had Thor here last week as well.
That's right.
Larry's buddy, Larry's workout buddy.
Another person who would never fit in that crawl space.
Yeah, never fit in that crawl space for sure, for sure.
Yeah. So what floor do you live on?
I have 3 apartments in the building.
Okay.
2 I rent out and 1 I live on. I live on the 36.
Okay.
Yeah, 36 is it's a bit of a bigger space, and so I have 3 kids.
All right.
Yeah. And they run around, so it's easier living in a bigger space. As you go higher, it gets smaller. You know?
That's right. But where can we follow you if we want to learn more about you?
I'm probably the most active on my Instagram. You know, kind of just, I think just like you. Maybe you're YouTube, right? Like
A bit of both.
yeah. So Instagram, it's at Commirza, COMMIRZA. Yeah, and you'll find me. I'm a verified profile on Instagram. It's the first one that'll pop up.
Awesome. Thank you so much for bringing us up.
My man, my
Thank
pleasure.
you.
My pleasure.
And on that note, guys, please like, subscribe, turn on post notifications, and drop a comment. We'll see you guys soon.